Hi guys, this is Stones. Welcome to my weekly review once again. Got a hat today because I need to go to the hairdresser. But apart from that, took 3 trades last week, which is a good quantity of trades for me. It was 3 good trades. Made a mistake on the second one, got shaken out, and the third one I didn't get a chance to get back in. But I'm really keen to go through those trades with you. So let's go over all that. All right, little bias to start the weekly review. So this was this week here. Last week was that really slow, tricky, choppy price action where I found no trades. Here on the higher time frame, I still had this information. I didn't have a convincing break. Was it on Tuesday or something? Here's where I took 2 of my trades, long counter trend. That's why I was very protective with those ones. Then we had this nasty move up, which sort of would have scared a lot of people if they were short from the top here. Often you'll see, I'll show on the lower time frame, but you get a sharp move down, sharp move up, and then continuation of the trend. So like maybe it does this sharp down, sharp up, and then it moves on the other side, like, or maybe more like this, sharp down, sharp up, and continuation. And on Ethereum was same, really unclear price action, no clean information with a retest. This was tricky, and to call it a top, like we have dropped now on the Friday especially, and over the weekend. Tricky thing to do. Maybe those two resets, those two retests, but this is hindsight. All right, let's go straight to the 15 minute and start the week. Monday, Tuesday, I was not working. I was still in Western Australia. There was this potential, continuation to the upside of the break, grab some liquidity, not the whole weekend liquidity, and that sharp move up, and you had decent retest. I was not keen to trade this, especially on a Monday, and thinking that my higher time frame was potentially forming a top. Wasn't keen to get the continuation, and I didn't have any confirmation or anything. So good point to be patient on those sort of trades. On Tuesday here, so this zone and this zone on Ethereum, I used to have a setup which was a slow grind like this under the EMAs, and then a retest of the 200 on the 5 minute or the 15. This would potentially be an entry, but because this price action wasn't too nice, wasn't so keen on entering that short, and it's an old setup that I usually take. Did not take, played out like it does usually, 80% of the time. But Sam did not get involved on this, was really patient and protective. All right, next Wednesday. This is where I took my trades, counter trend. So I really want to elaborate on those ones, on those 2 trades. I think there's a lot to say there. So let me bring those trades up. I'm gonna have to go to lower time frames, but I had 3 levels down, 1, 2, 3, and it's especially good when you have one per session. So one in Asia, one in UK, one in US. Very similar on Ethereum, the same thing. 3 clean levels. Ethereum swept the previous week low. You had this W formation. I would never enter on the second peak, but here, if I jumped onto the lower time frames on Bitcoin, there was an entry in here. You actually see, if I remove my drawings, you have a bit of a break, and then this candle, this hammer, this is your entry for. You're not entering off second peak, it's sort of already a retest, and I had confirmation on lower time frames, so we're gonna jump onto lower time frames. So there we are on the lower time frame. I'm on the 2 minute because this is where I got my entry from, but that's sort of the higher time frame, 15 minute W. You do have a breaker here, takes away to liquidity, runs through it, holds 50% of the previous week, which is good too, good level. But you really want to have that sharp move going through it, and I was waiting for a retest for an entry. But because it was second peak W, I was quite careful, so I did not enter just off that. Wasn't enough for me. But like I have on this drawing, I'm gonna focus a bit more on Bitcoin. I do like those. If you manage to see a range forming, you have the high taken, the low taken. I always look for 50% to get retested for an entry. And I saw this and I took a bit of time to enter this trade because, like I said, I wanted confirmation. And as soon as we broke the range high, this is when I entered my trade. My stop went just under. And this trade played out beautifully with almost zero drawdown here, straight up. And like I always say, I do not set and forget a trade because especially it was counter trend trading. I want to manage that trade because we can just have a little bounce and then reject straight away. So I was monitoring the lower time frames. I had a bit of this area that I wanted Bitcoin to hold, and it was just ranging in here. If I go into Ethereum, because this is a bit key here in this trade, we were holding this demand the whole time, and you had a bit of a liquidity sweep here, but we never broke the bottom of that demand. So this was still bullish, but I had a rejection of 50% of the previous day. And on Bitcoin, we were not really holding that demand. It was like starting to break down below. And I got into my 2 hour window for a trade, which is my cutoff time. And I decided that, okay, if this is the low, let me go back on Ethereum. And I decided at this point that if that's how low Bitcoin is going to go into that demand, and at the same time here, I had this liquidity sweep on Ethereum, I was okay. I want price to shoot up from here. I'm happy to just move my stop loss here because my rules for the 2 hour mark is if I'm not in decent profit or around break even or something, I'll put my stop close to break even. So usually if I'm in profit, I don't really care about this rule. But because we had a sweep and it wasn't really bouncing straight away, yeah, I was happy to put my stop here and move on as well. I like to move on to a trade, especially if I spend already a couple hours in this one. So from the gap to here was already 3 hours in. So put my stop loss under and then moved on with my life. And this trade turned out to be one risk to reward trade. And to be honest, I still think it was a good call, even if I got stopped out and it came back to as high as this level. But like you see here, it just went nowhere for this whole time. And so you're just wasting time here. And actually this trade never went to my target. I could have had a lower target, like a more recent high. I had those highs as a target first, but Bitcoin never went even to the first one. And this is when it happens sometimes. You get frustrated because you enter one asset and the other one pumps more, and Ethereum had a bigger run, and I would have not been like tempted to get out of this trade. I'm not sure. Maybe I would have put my stop under here and would have been stopped out on just on this candle. But yeah, just protective counter trend trade. Happy about this one. No regret. Then to move on to the next one, which is really good because you got an entry in Asia and then another setup in UK. This one I do have a little bit of a regret. Little story for this trade. I was in the lounge at the airport when I entered this, and I think I was flying. Yeah, I was flying from wherever, middle of the trade, and I made sure I had Wi-Fi in the plane. Otherwise, I would have put my stop loss higher or even just cut the trade before, if I could not monitor it. At least break even in the minimum. And yeah, I closed this in the plane on my laptop, which was pretty cool. And this is why we all try to trade, because you could trade from anywhere. All right, and second trade in UK. The setup was good on Bitcoin. I think I was on the 5 minute. Maybe I'll go back up to the 5 minute. So on the 5 minute on Bitcoin, we took that liquidity here from Asia. We were holding 200 EMA. We had this breaker. We had this first retest and started to move higher. We had first this inverted hammer, and I do like sometimes you know the move is, this is your retest, is going to go higher. Sometimes you get an inverted hammer printed and then it just runs through it. So it's sort of a trap. And this is why when I entered my trade, where there was on this candle, this one's probably on this one, we started moving up and I'm like, okay, I'm going long. My entry was good. Sometimes I put my stop loss to the retest of the breaker, even if a lot of people would put it down there. But the risk to reward to Asia highs wasn't good enough. I had another target that was a little bit higher, but this was my break-even point. And I think if I would have seen this retrace and just us hovering here, I would have probably closed this trade. But we'll never know because I closed that trade earlier. I was planning on managing that trade into my second plane as well, but it happened right at takeoff, and I got asked to put my laptop away, so I was on my phone. Not ideal. Don't really like to trade off my phone. But I entered this trade, and we had this other inverted hammer, so it was almost like it was 3 inverted hammer in a row. Didn't put too much trust into this trade, and then we started shooting down under that breaker. And because I don't have the split screen on my phone, I failed to see that Ethereum had a nice W, and it was only higher and only retesting the middle peak of that W and the EMAs. Ethereum was still the best trade again on this one if you were still to re-enter there. But yeah, I got scared, wasn't happy, and closed my trade here. My stop loss would have held. It's a bit of luck there, I guess. And yeah, would have been maybe a winner, and I took almost half a loss. So this one, quite spewing about this one, but this is what happens if you trade off your phone and you can't really see everything. And I couldn't compare with Ethereum. Ethereum was holding quite strongly, so this was the tail sign. The other thing that pushed me to go long, and that was counter trend trading, is, like I said, I had on my 3 levels, and it was as well after CPI. And we know a lot of the market now, even CPI was bad, and I really don't care about news. I don't pay attention that much about them. I do pay attention to CPI, FOMC, and NFP, non-farm payrolls. Just the day that they happen, because we might be ranging before, but it's not always the case. Sometimes we just trend, like for example, yeah, here we were trending the whole day before CPI. But anyway, the news were bearish, and it was a good time to get a retrace. And bearish news, market rallies on it because everyone gets hurt in trading, and it's like this. So at this point of the week, I was break even. I was still pretty relaxed and just waiting for another good entry. I don't think I saw anything crazy over Thursday. This was Asia and UK. The move was in US. I don't trade US anymore. Do not wake up for it anymore. All right, we're back on the 5 minutes. I had 3 levels here on the 5 minute and a retest. This retest was retesting a supply area. We went a little bit higher on Ethereum. A little bit same on Bitcoin. Both retested 50% of Asia, 50% of Asia, and I actually been complaining that I felt like it's been a while. I haven't seen those nice 5 minute M retest or W, especially M because I'm more inclined to go short. And I think I complained the day before in my head, and this one presented, and I was like, okay, this is perfect trade. I haven't seen those for a while. And what I was waiting for is once I get my M, I want to see an inverted hammer. So the one we got here on Bitcoin was my confirmation to go into the trade. I got back into Ethereum because this is the one I like to trade, and it's usually more volatile and cost less in fees to get in. And yeah, didn't go anywhere. It was my 2-hour mark. It was about 8 p.m. my time. And so what I did, because this is part of my rules, and I know they work, they protect me in the long term, even if you're going to think that it did not work on this one because it ended up going to my target. more often than not, it's gonna protect me. And here, my idea was really that we were just gonna fall down. Worst case retest. That's why I was still here and here, but at some point fall down. And I had marked this week for the trap traders, and yeah, price wasn't going back in there, and that's what forced me to like, okay, maybe there's a potential that we are gonna do a 15-minute M, which is what happened, but I'm not gonna be able to trade end of UK or US, so I'd rather cut my trade. And like I said many times as well, if I get stopped out near my entry, it's not a problem because it means like price went back there, and even if it goes down, I might get another re-entry, and then now my stop loss can be lower. And in this case, for example, for this trade, I knew that we were potentially going to form a second side M, and it was time for me, like it was the end of my day here, so that's why I did not re-enter. But if it's in the middle of the day, this happens, you get an M, you get, I don't know, this retest somewhere in here. Usually don't trade the end of UK, which is tricky, and by the US you were already too late. But what I mean is you realize, okay, we're not gonna go lower. I re-enter here and I put this trade down there, and then from that 3-hour trade I had, now I've got almost a 5-hour trade. So I get stopped at break even, little loss with the fees, but then I end up going back into a better trade. And then this is how I like to play it, and it works in my favor. Like, I like it. The funny thing on this one is, if I hide this for a second, is so cut my trade, I went cook dinner, got stopped out, got an alert, did my life, went in bed, and in bed I checked my chart, and I'm not kidding, this M here had formed, especially with this evening star. And then when we had this run up, I thought this is just the retest before we go lower. And I was in my bed on my phone, and I'm not kidding. I'm like, if this is the re-entry, and we end up going to my target, I think it was an 8-hour trade. Yeah, exactly. This is a fantastic trade. And I thought, I don't want to re-enter now of my phone before going to bed, because there's something that I hate a lot is actually just being in a trade for a long time, and another one, like for days, and another one is to go to bed with the trade open. And I used to do it a lot, and it's good when you wake up with a win like this one. I would have been happy, but it's terrible when you enter a trade, you go to bed, and trade does this, doesn't go to your TP, it stops you out because you're in bed. We're not here to manage and monitor your trade and realize that this was I don't know, maybe this only level that they were going to take, and then so if it ranged for too long before my TP, I'll just close this trade. I don't care if it's an 8-hour or a 6-hour or a 7-hour. If it's there for 30 minutes, I'm not hoping that it will go to my TP. I'll just close my trade. So this is one point. And the second point is, if the trade moves all the way down here and still ends up stopping you out, at some point you would have gone break even for like at that level. And if you're sleeping, but you can't. And that happened to me a lot as well. And you're really unhappy when this happens. Open a trade, go to bed, wake up in a win, best day ever. Open a trade, miss TP, stops you out for the full stop loss, worst day ever. So I don't do this anymore. If one day I think it's going to be really, really worth it, I might do it. Like trade rules are meant to be changed sometimes, depending on the situation. But that's why I said that trading is brutal. Got shaken out of the one on Wednesday, and it was a win. And this one, yeah, the re-entry would have been nice, and I actually saw the re-entry on my phone before going to bed, and I woke up to this. Yeah, this was difficult, and trading is brutal. So these are my trade for the week. That 1-hour result at the entry at the start of the week. That half loss there. Between those two trades, I should have been in profit, but because of the fees here, that are quite substantial, almost $100 per trade in total, entry and exit. Those trades equal the same amount. And that last break-even trade, same break-even with the fees, little loss. So little loss on the week. This is my TradeZilla. So I enter everything manually because the breakout prop firm account doesn't sync on TradeZilla. But you can enter everything. You have the exact same value, like I said many times. This account is about transparency. So I'll show you all my trades. I'll show the details. I believe there's not a lot of traders that are doing this thoughtfully and be honest about everything. It's easy to just show a TradeZilla dashboard. You've got the trades from the prop account, and these are my trades for the month so far. So pretty happy about like 3 trades. Like I said, for the week it's perfect for me. It means like I had a lot of setups. If I was able to enter on 3 trades, and especially that this could have been 3 winning trades, would have been 4 with the re-entry on Friday if I did re-enter. But and so far for the month, I like my new behavior. I've got 4 trades in. It's pretty much break even, tiny loss for the month, but this is all I want to see in my trading. And those first few months of the year and the last 1 or 2, I had poor behavior, too much trading, and this is exactly how I want to trade. If I get no trade during a whole week, this is what I want to see. It means I was patient, nothing was satisfying my needs, and you see that's a good example of here you get no trade for a whole week because nothing is clean, and then here I get 3 trades, which for me is a lot. I got a lot of setups on that week. So yeah,